I was wrong in doing what I did.
No, no! No! Are you listening?
Sean here. Let's see if I can get through this without losing my mind. I freaking get winded getting up from my bed and going downstairs to get something. This COVID bout, I had it once before, you guys know. It was mild. I still felt like crap, but this one took me down the entire week. I just slept. I tried to get online like 2 hours and I was back asleep. But I wanted to talk about something I think we all do. When we go back, like I have movies I can go back to. I'm going to use one as an example. Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel. Absolutely loved that film. I think it was one of the few perfect films that I've seen in my lifetime. There are some moments that make you uncomfortable. I don't do really well in movies when you're listening to something or looking at an awkward situation and you're just like, oh God, I just want to turn away, but I can't because I'll miss part of the movie. That's Lorne's entire life. That's my life when you have bipolar and you go back and you tend to remember the moments that made you feel bad or the moments that made you feel awkward more than the good moments. But pictures, video clips, things you've taken over your lifetime, you can go back. That's a moment in time you can go back to. It's something that when I was growing up, you didn't have these epic camera phones. You didn't have great photo quality. Most of our stuff was 35 millimeter film, which are great. You can hold them in your hand and you can look at them, but it's not the same. But you go back and you kind of revisit that time. It's a reflection of where we were as a society, where you were in terms of taste. And you may remember how you felt the first time you saw it. Like the first time I saw Star Wars. I was a very young child when Star Wars came out in the theater. Very young. And I just remember looking at the screen and thinking, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen. I was scarred for life at the part, this is definitely not a spoiler, everybody's seen. I was scarred for life when Luke's parent or Luke's aunt and uncle were scorched and their skeletons were left there smoking. And then later on, of course, George Lucas came back and he decided that he wanted to add 900 different effects and completely ruin the original trilogy. There is a reason, there are reasons that people were so frustrated that he went back and changed it. It's because that was a moment in time, that was a moment in our life. We remember how we felt. We remember what we saw on screen and how amazing it was, especially for the time. But now, when someone goes back and they taint it, when they go back and they change it, you no longer feel the same feelings. You feel hollow a little bit. You feel agitated. You can't enjoy them as much. However, it's the same story. You're good. It's the same story. It just looks a little different. See, I think one of Lorne's problems is no matter what, he can't go back and make that Lorne's Life Special Edition. He can't go back and change any of that. And I've often wondered what he would change. I don't think he would change anything except the sting. And we've talked about that a little bit. I really don't. They are a time machine. Because after we watch them, we tell stories sometimes. Oh, I remember the first time I saw it. I saw it with my dad. I saw it with my mom. I was with my cousin Doug, my Uncle Johnny, my dad, and it was me, and I think there may have been somebody else. But that's the core group. That's what I remember. Because Uncle Johnny, if you watch the movie Casino, my uncle was one of the people in the airport. He was a detective. And on his, well, he's passed on now, but on his wall, he had a solid gold badge. And he had, literally in the movies where you have the line and it's got the names that he helped take down underneath it. And he was even referenced in the book that Casino, the movie, was based on. So he came out, he was living in Simi Valley, which is where all the cops were living, and he came out, and he was like, oh, you got to see this film, Star Wars, you're not going to believe it, because, of course, in Kentucky, everything takes forever to get here. So now, when my kids watched it, I, of course, told that story, and it's a little dated, but the story is not. The story is not dated. The point I'm making is, when you go back and you watch that, you time travel. Lorne's only his only spot where he goes back to is the Sting. Sometimes talking about owning his own septic business and then some bullcrap about some women. But the Sting is where he goes back to every time. We recall our interactions, our failures, our successes, anything around that time. We remember where we were, how we were emotionally, how we were financially. See, Lorne, all he'll ever remember is that chat, walking up to the house, Chris Hansen walking out. Am I going to go to jail tonight? I'd like a lawyer. Then he goes to prison. And then he gets out and he spends the rest of his life trying to retcon and gaslight everything that happened in the past. Every woman he speaks to, one of them was not a woman, masterfully done. Every woman he speaks to, all of us, we've heard it. We've read the chat. We know what happened. You can't go back and change it. We look at those pictures when we're at the beach. There was a girl I really liked. We went to Myrtle Beach. And I really liked her. I met her there. Turns out her boyfriend or whatever was coming down 2 days later after we'd spent like every day together. And of course it was a summer romance and I was devastated. And that night I ended up meeting two blonde girls. And one of them was really nice and we hung out. You know, I was young enough where nothing happened, but it was so cool. It was a great story to tell when I came back. Yo, you're not gonna, we didn't say, but hey man, you're not gonna believe what happened. Summer lovin'. Told the story. Of course, embellished a little bit. You know, we kissed under the moonlight or whatever. I got a kiss on the cheek. It doesn't really count. But, you know, when you're telling your boys and stuff, you're like, yeah, we totally kissed under the moonlight, man. Never happened. But I love to tell that story. And I don't tell it anymore. But back then, you tell it to your boys, you know. Lorne's going to tell whatever bullcrap story he wants to anyone who will listen. Because he knows if he time travels back to that time, if he puts himself there, everything where he was in his life, macaroni, cheese, meatballs, deviled eggs, all of that stuff, if that's what he remembers, seriously, if that's what he remembers as the only thing that happened during that time, that says a lot about who Lorne Armstrong is. It says a lot about what was going on in his life, or better yet, what was not going on in his life. One of the biggest movies we've heard him reference is Dumb and Dumber, and I don't think that's by accident. He probably went around and quoted that movie. He remembered, so you're telling me there's a chance. And the only part of that movie he remembered probably dealt with the redhead. He probably had a big crush. He's still the guy that if he sees a woman he likes, he thinks if they could only meet, she would instantly fall in love with him. It would be like Matt Damon and his bartender girlfriend. I really believe Lorne gets a crush on these celebrities and believes if they met in person, she'd see what a great guy he was. She wouldn't worry about where he lived, what he looked like, or the debt, or how he treats women. He would be different with her. And this movie star, that would be perfect. And maybe that's why he was so hopeful with Casey. Thinking that, you know what? I'm about to live my dream. All these people I've had crushes on, to think that you would have a crush on a woman involved in a sting, and a woman who probably finds you revolting, that's just mind-blowing. But again, that's Lorne Armstrong. I think he watches Little House on the Prairie, not just because he gets a chub, but also because that reminds him of a simpler time when he was living off his mom, and all he had to worry about, and this is why I think sometimes man, it was so easy as a kid. You didn't have the freedom you have now. You couldn't spend your money on what you wanted to, but all you had to do was get up, go to school, come home, eat, play, shoot basketball, whatever you did, go to bed, repeat, and then you hit the real world. And I think the real world hit Lorne like a ton of bricks. And I think that's why when he looks back, there really is nothing for him. And that's why he might try to gaslight NBC, trying to make it something. because it is something. It's just not what he wants. We'll talk about Darkside Bill and the time he left the camera on and proceeded to masturbate in front of everyone. Finished, I think it was like 1,000, and he was already clicking on the mouse. It was just bizarre, but he goes back and he gaslights it. He tried to say he meant to leave the camera on. He tried to say it was the best thing that ever happened, but he never recovered from it. He's still living in these moments that happened way, way, way back in the day. They will not be forgotten by other people. Lorne, his actions, they will not be forgotten by other people. We will always remember him as the pathetic pedo who tried to groom a child, went to the sting, cried, said caught, went to prison, didn't learn a thing, got out, got catfished, embarrassingly catfished, over and over again, was recorded by people who looked him in the eye and said, I am with the Church of God. And he went ahead and spoke to them anyway. A guy that let a woman have access to his bank account to see that he's overdrawn in his checking and savings, to see he's ridiculously in debt, to see his trailer. How can you not have some kind of self? How can you not have a come to Jesus moment when someone else is looking at your life and they're pointing out everything that's wrong with it? Casey talking to him about finances and his trailer and trying to point out to him, look, there's nothing going on in your life that's positive. Occasionally, Lorne, when he gets attention seeking, will say, then why do you want to have anything to do with me? God. That right there, man, that right there would be the moment. Self-reflection. That would be the moment I would say, holy crap, look at where I'm at. I have to make a change. If I had that time machine, if I had that where I could go back, I would probably go back and watch it. And I would make myself go back and watch it because I would remember how bad that felt. How bad I felt, what happened because of it, all the mistakes I made. I needed to get my life in order, but not this guy. His time machine takes him back to a better time. To a time he was on TV, when people were talking about him, saying his name. Imagine all of the people that watched To Catch a Predator. And they came into work the next day like, did you watch that To Catch a Predator? Oh my God, did you see that guy that came in? Hey girl, caught, talking about him, how he was crying, his bald head, whatever they were talking about. That was a moment when Lorne was on the lips of people who watched the show. They may not even remember his name, but they were talking about him. And again, Lorne needs people to talk about him. And I feel sorry a little bit for him that all of his time jumps back is nothing but negative. Nothing. There's not a positive in his life. The bright spot was Paula, and we know what happened there. That was his bright spot. And the septic business, we know. And I agree with people. I think Lorne fled Washington, and I said it before. I think he fled away from his siblings because I don't know about you, but I would feel uncomfortable as hell with Lorne around my children, especially if they were young girls, and I talked about that before. Nothing in his life has gone the way he wanted it. How do you not feel like a colossal failure? I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. I have a decent life. I do what I want to do. I like what I want to like. I don't cope. I don't say, well, the reason this and Lorne copes. Lorne gets in a cope time machine, and he goes back, and he immediately smokes the copium, and he starts to gaslight everything, like I mentioned before. If he were to go back, he doesn't even watch movies, I think. He told us he didn't watch very many. But again, maybe that's why he watches Little House on the Prairie. He goes back and he remembers sitting around the house, and maybe there was some harmony. Little Lorne was getting attention, and it's gone. His mother, if she's not gone already, will be gone very soon. I want to see how that affects him. I really do. I want to see if he goes back in his head thinking about his mom. I think when he does go back and think about his mom, it is a bunch of negative stuff, which is why he's so, I'm the hero. Don't you talk about my mom. I'm the white knight. And I just generally feel like there are nothing but negative memories for him. Everything he goes back. If he has photos, I would love to see what they are. Are they all of him and his mom when he was younger? I don't think Lorne's the type of guy to say, hey mom, let me get some pictures with you. Hey mom, hey Roy, let's get some pictures. Let's remember these moments. We're over at Christmas. Let's get some pictures. I don't think he takes photos. And all of that, those positive moments, you need those photos. Even if you're in the worst mood of your life, and they don't know it, you're playing nice, get those photographs. Get them. Remember the good times. Look back. Have video. Something. Lorne's only photos and video are probably of himself naked and talking to his catfish because you were up all night with your new guy. I just don't understand how you can get there where no one else around you matters except for yourself. You don't take those time capsule moments. You don't take those time machine moments. You don't have them. So the only thing that Lorne has is the sting to go back to. And his memories that he doesn't even know what's real and what's not. Because he's told himself so much crap over the years. Lying to himself, lying to others. Hoping that there's going to be another catfish. And part of me hopes there is, and part of me hopes there isn't. I want him to sit in that trailer, and I want him to look around. I want him to stew on it. I want him to just ask himself, how did I get here? And then maybe take those time jumps back. And maybe see what reality really is. Lorne could hit rock bottom and still go lower. And I think that's why he's able to look back and see all the negative things and put some kind of positive spin on it. Anyway, we all have our time machines. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.
Hang on, I can't even catch my breath. Hang on.
Yeah, this